Levi here, the Outdoor Cowboy, and welcome back to the Outdoor Cowboy YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about knots. I'm going to be showing you and teaching you how to make my top 10 favorite knots. I'm going to be talking about the strengths of each of them, how to make them, and where you can use them when you're survival camping. So, hopefully you're not tied up in anything so you can watch this video. Let's jump into it and saddle up for the ride. Alright, our first knot that we're going to be talking about is just a simple square knot, which is definitely the knot that I use the most. I use a square knot just in my day-to-day just because it's the easiest, and it definitely holds good enough for most things. And most of you probably know how to make a square knot. But a square knot is great for either joining two ropes, or if you wrap around something or tying something down with the two ends of the same rope, you can then make a square knot and it will hold and tie together, and then you can undo it. So let's jump into how to make it. With a square knot, you cross one over the other and loop it around. And then you do the same thing again, but this time you're going to switch which rope was over and then pull it tight. And when you're done, it should look like this on both sides. The knot should be symmetrical this way. So basically all of the ends of the rope should be going out on the same sides of the knot. If you did it like this, where all the ends of the ropes are coming out on different sides, that means you did it wrong. That means you tied them both the same ways. So go back, redo the second knot, so you tie it just like that, so that it's coming out on both sides. And like I said, the square knot is super simple, but it's just really quick. It can be great for either joining two ropes together. So if you need a rope to be longer, but you have two shorter ones, you can tie them together, or just tying something down. Just tie a quick square knot. Just take a couple seconds to tie, and then you pull on this thing and it will get super tight. So that's our first knot, the square knot, one that you guys are probably all familiar with or have heard of. Super easy to learn, but also just great for the outdoors, and the one that I probably use the most. So that's the square knot. Let's move on to our next knot. Our next knot isn't necessarily a knot by itself, but I think it's important because it's something that we're going to implement into our other knots as we go on. So it's just the slip knot. Just kind of understanding how when you tie something up, you can make it so it's easy to pull out. So we're just going to tie our rope to this little tree right here. Just do a quick knot right there. And then when we tie our slip knot, we're going to make a loop like this and then pull this side through. What we're going to do is we're going to not pull it all the way through so that we have a loop just like this, right? So this is tight. We can pull on it this way and this thing will stay pretty good, but it doesn't get our knot super tight because we can just pull it and it goes undone like that. So this can be great. I've had situations where I've made hammocks or different things like that, or I've tied up tarps and I tie them super tight so that they stay. But then I run into the problem that I can't get my knot undone in the end. So looping it through like this, having the end of the rope be over here can be super helpful, because when you're done, you can just pull it. And you don't have any binding, you don't have to cut your rope, because I've definitely had to do that before where a knot is so tight that I can't get it undone, so I just end up cutting it. So our second one is the slip knot. Again, can be super quick. If you just need to tie something up, you get a nice little loop. And then when you're done and want it undone, you just pull it just like that, and you got a clean rope again. So slip knot is our second knot, and we're going to be implementing it more into our other knots, but just think it's important to go over. But let's move on to our next knot. All right, our next knot is one I think is super important for everyone to know, just for safety, because it really can save lives, and it's called the bow line. So the easiest way that I like to tie it is pull the rope around you. I like to have the short end in my right hand and then the rest of the rope in my left hand. And what you're going to do with it wrapped around your back, you're going to take your right hand, cross it over, and what you're going to do is loop your hand underneath so it goes kind of where your body is on the inside. Then you come out like this, wrapped around your wrist, still holding that short end of the rope. You're going to cross it under, kind of let go of it, and then grab it again. And then you're going to pull that end back through that loop that you had your hand in, and then pull it tight just like that. And this is a super fun knot. It was one of the first ones I learned in Scouts, and it's one that we'd have a race to see who could do this the quickest and tie their bow line. Which it's really fun to do that, but it has real uses. Because this one can be great if you're stranded somewhere, or maybe life flight is there, or you're hanging off a cliff and someone throws a rope down to you. Anything like that where you need to tie a knot around you in a hurry, you can quickly tie this knot in a second or two. And then this knot is super great because it won't move anywhere. It's not like a noose style knot where it will tighten down when there's weight on this thing. And this can be a rope where you put it under your shoulders like this and someone can pick you up. Or you can have it around your waist, kind of more like a climbing harness, and someone can pull you up. And this knot will definitely carry your weight. It'll tighten down super tight with your weight on it, so you know it won't come undone. But it can just be a great quick knot that truly can save lives. because you can also do this knot with it not wrapped around your body. Just like that. And then this could be a rope you could also throw to someone. If someone is drowning, you could toss this to them and they can get their head and arm through the hole, and then you could pull them to safety. So it's a super good knot to know. It's really quick, something that you can practice over and over again. It's fun. You can even do it with a shoelace or a paracord or anything, and just practice over and over again how fast you can tie your bowline, because it could save your life one day. So that's the bowline. That's our third knot. Now let's move on to our next one. All right, our next knot or way to tie a rope is a really fun one, and it really has a lot of uses. It's called the daisy chain. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna make a loop with your rope, and then once you have a loop made, you'll reach through and just pull it out. And then you just keep doing that same thing over again. Get a loop, reach through, grab your rope, pull it out. Got a loop, reach through, grab your rope, pull it out. And if you see what we're doing is we're creating this chain, so we have all of these loops in it. But then you can just pull this rope and the entire chain comes undone just like that. So this can be a great one. A lot of people like to use this way for storing a rope. The rope I have here is 100 feet long, which can be super hard, right? To do the wrap up or to store somewhere, it can get tangled really easily. So if you just do a daisy chain like this, then the rope will be super easy to hang up. And when you want it undone, just pull the rope and it undoes all of the loops just like that. So a super cool way to tie the rope. It's cool how it gets a bunch of loops. I've definitely made this and tied it up in between something and used the loops. You can either like hook carabiners on there or just hang things from the loops. So that's kind of a cool way to do it. But also a lot of people use it for storage, because not only does it make it so it tangles less, but it shortens the length of your rope by quite a bit, by just about a third. So this rope I have here is 100 feet long. And if I daisy chained the entire thing, just like this, you can see that there's pretty much 3 ropes the whole time, so it'll shorten it about a third. So this 100-foot rope will basically turn into about 30 feet of rope, which is way easier to store or wrap up or anything like that than a 100-foot long rope is. So that's our daisy chain. And another nice thing about it is you can change the size of loops. So if I just want a loop that big, I can do loops that big. So my loops are just a couple inches long, or I can do loops really big. I can make them be about 10 or 12 inches long, and really anything you need. So it's really adaptable for your circumstances, but definitely a good one to know for all different situations. So that's our daisy chain. Let's move on to our next knot. All right, our next knot is called the trucker's hitch, which I think is a super important one. It's awesome for tying stuff down, for getting tarps really tight, for getting hammocks really tight. So we're gonna tie between these 2 trees just so we can get an effect of pulling them together, but it really can be used to tie down anything. I use this one if I don't have a ratchet strap and I'm tying something down in my truck or on a trailer. This can be a great one because it's one that you can tighten under load, which is pretty rare for a knot. Most knots, if you have them under load, different hitches, different friction knots, if you have them under a load, you're unable to pull them tighter while they're under load. You have to take them off load and tighten them and then put them back under load, meaning just that the weight's on it, or maybe you have to unhook your hammock or unhook your tarp. But this is one that you can do under load and pull it super tight and it will stay. So I think that's its biggest benefit, and it really is one that I use all the time. So this is the trucker's hitch. First, we'll just tie a simple knot around this tree. And then what we're gonna do is about halfway, or however much tightening you need, we're gonna create a slip knot. So we're gonna do our little loop, exactly like we did earlier. So we have a loop right there, right? And if we pull this guy, our loop starts to get smaller and will come undone. But we want the loop to be there. And then we'll wrap around this tree. And then what we're gonna do is go through our loop. And then we're gonna pull as tight as we can. And our knot's not gonna slide at all on this rope. It's just going to get tighter around the tree. So you can pull on this thing as tight as you want. And you can see that we're even starting to pull the trees in towards each other. So pull it super tight, and then you'll pinch on the rope that you're pulling so that it keeps it steady. And then with our rope, we'll just tie a knot right on this other side. And we're gonna choose to tie another slip knot right there. So I have my rope doubled right here just because I have 100 feet and I didn't want to pull all the way through. But right here you can see we've got our knot, and this rope's under a ton of tension now. It's super tight. We're even kind of pulling that tree a little bit, but it's super nice because even if we want it tighter, we'll pull this slip knot out, pull our rope a little more, pinch it again, and then tie another knot just like that, and that'll hold it. The thing I really like about this one is first that it's pretty unique in that you can pull it when it's under load, which there's not very many knots that you can do that. You can get it super tight and this thing will hold. Like I said, I've tied up hammocks like this and it will hold my fat butt, so you know that's good. 225 pounds, it can at least hold that. So really like it. But then also we've got double slip knots here, so even if it's under a bunch of weight, when we go to get it undone, we just pull on this rope, that undoes our first slip knot, and then we can pull this rope and it will undo that slip knot just like that. And we got a clean rope, no knots in it that we got to dig our fingernails into or anything to get out, and we're all packed up and ready to get headed home. So that's the trucker's hitch. Super awesome for tying stuff down in a trailer or in a truck, because you can really wrench on it if you don't have a ratchet, or just tying things tight like a tarp or a hammock or really anything else that you can think of. So that's the trucker's hitch. Super awesome, definitely learn it. Now let's move on to our next knot. All right, our next knot that we're gonna learn is called the constrictor knot, which it does exactly what it sounds like. It pulls things together. So it can be great for holding things together, bundling sticks, putting them together. You can tie a bunch of fishing rods together, or it can also be used to tie a bag closed. So bags of fertilizer or soil at home that you have that you've opened, you can use this knot, or even backpacks. If a zipper breaks, you can use this knot as well. So what we do is we basically make 3 loops around the tree. So we're gonna take our rope, we're gonna go like this, and we're going to go around, which I'm gonna hold the rope over here like we're tying up over there just to make the knot more visible. So we're gonna come around and we're going to be on the bottom, then we're gonna like this and cross so it's on the top for the next loop around. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over this one, but then we see we have an X here, and our goal is for the end of this rope to go through that X, so it's gonna look like that underneath. So we're gonna have to loosen them both a little bit, but it'll pull tight in the end. So we go underneath our X just like that, and then we'll pull tight just like that. So there we go, we have that. And obviously we just did it on this tree, which doesn't really show the usefulness of this knot, but like I said, it can be used to bundle things together or constrict things, hence the name of the knot. But this is a super tight knot, it'll stay super good, but then it can be loosened really easily. You just pull on that guy and it will come all the way apart. So just like that, that's our constrictor knot. Now let's move on to our next one. All right, for our next knot, we're gonna be using a tree again. And this one is kind of double part, so we're gonna count it as 2 separate knots, but they're tied really similar. We've got the cow hitch and then the double half hitch. So there's first 2 ways to tie the cow hitch. The first way to do it is you'll just make a loop and you'll wrap the loop around and then feed both of your wires through and tie it just like that. This is like a double cow hitch basically, so that'll hold tight, and then you have 2 ends of rope that you can do stuff with. But if you'd like to tie it with just one end so it ties a knot, you'll tie your rope around, then you'll cross it over, come up under like this, and then we'll make a loop and come back through this way. So you can see that it's a cow hitch because they loop around both ways and come out the same direction just like that. And then to tighten it, you just pull this guy and it slides down. And this knot right here can take a ton of tension. I can lean back and pull on this. This knot can probably hold as much as your rope is weighted for, so definitely great. But then it's also a super easy knot to undo. You just loosen it here and give yourself some slack, and then you push these guys together and push down on this, and that will release it. And then you'll be able to pull this guy through and completely undo the knot just like that. But we'll tie our knot again. So our double half hitch starts out the same way. We go over, come up through, but then when we loop around, we're not gonna loop under and go over through, we're gonna do the opposite. So we're gonna go over and then loop under just like that and pull it tight. So kind of the same idea, it'll still slide on that rope, but this one is nice because since you only have one rope going through, you've got enough friction in the knot that you can do a slip knot with a double half hitch as well. So we can pull this guy tight and then again, pull our slip knot and the whole knot comes undone. So that's kind of our 2-part, the cow hitch and the double half hitch. Both just great stuff for tying to a tree. They're both super strong knots that can take a ton of weight, probably as much as your rope is weighted for up to a certain extent, but definitely hundreds of pounds if tied correctly and if your rope can handle that. But then both of them are pretty easy to undo. The cow hitch looks really nice, and really nice how you can press the loop of the knot down and it will loosen the whole knot. or the double half hitch, which is just a classic knot, and it has enough friction that you can throw a slip knot in there. So no matter how much weight you pull on the rope, you can just pull your other end and the whole knot will come undone. So that's knot number 7 and 8, our cow hitch and our double half hitch. Now let's move on to knot number 9, and then they got one more after that. All right, our next knot has a couple different names, but we're gonna go with double fisherman's bend. And this knot specializes in tying 2 ropes together of different sizes. So we talked about how our square knot can be a good way to tie 2 ropes together. That one works best if they're the same size, and it's just relatively quick to do. This one takes a little bit more tying, but it's definitely stronger than the square knot and definitely more permanent. Because this one, if you pull it really tight, it's almost impossible to get undone. So we're not gonna do that today because I wanna save my ropes, but we'll still tie it as an example. But this one just works super good, and there are often times where you don't have 2 ropes or cords that are the exact same size, so that's what this one comes in handy. Just holds super strong, and it's nice because they basically tie a knot by themselves, but just around the other rope, so you still get the friction of the ropes themselves tying knots, but then they slide together and tighten together. So what we're gonna do is first cross like this, like you're going to tie a square knot, the first step of the square knot, and then wrap this guy around 2 more times. So that's basically wrapped around 3 times, just like that. And then we'll take our rope and feed it underneath all 3 of them. So we loosen them like that, then feed our rope through. Then we'll pull that guy tight, just like that. And you can see we've kind of got that triple layer knot right there. That's exactly what we want. And now we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we'll act like we're tying a square knot, loop it around 2 more times, and then we'll come back through just like that and tie it. So again, we've got that triple layered knot. So now we can see we have 2 knots on either side, and then all we're gonna do is just pull them like this, and they'll come together and then secure like that. Like I said, these things will tighten together super hard. So I'm not gonna pull these super tight just because I wanna get this rope undone. But basically just like that, and you pull these, and these 2 ropes are never coming apart. Let's see if I can get mine apart. I had to dig in the fingernails a little, but not too bad. So just like that, if you need to tie 2 ropes together of different sizes, we got our double fisherman's bend. So that's our 9th knot. Now let's move on to our last one. All right, our last knot, knot number 10, is called the figure 8 knot. And this knot is really cool. I think it's one of the coolest looking knots, but it's also super useful. It's known as a stoppage knot, meaning that it has just enough friction in your rope that it will hold whatever's in there, but the rope can come out both ends. So you'll have a rope with just this knot in the middle that can hold stuff, and it doesn't slide at all. So that's what it's known for. Also, if you have any experience rock climbing or belaying, it's the knot that's usually used to tie to the harness of the climber or the belayer that goes up the rope that keeps them safe. So it's a really trusty knot, has been used many times, and it doesn't really fail because of how much friction it has. So super great knot to know just in general, but especially if you're gonna be climbing or belaying, this is the knot that they use. And with this knot, we have our rope. And the goal is basically just to draw a figure 8 with it. It's pretty much as simple as that. And this knot is just tied with one end. So basically we're gonna take our rope, and there's a couple different ways to try this. I honestly just usually think about what a figure 8 is supposed to look like and just tie it like that. So we're gonna tie it, we take this end, loop it in front like this, and then it will wrap up behind, and then it will go through our hole right there and pull it down. And just like that, we've got a nice little figure 8. So pretty cool. Again, you could put something in there, tie something into the figure 8 knot. But then if you're a climber, and something you could also do to fasten yourself or fasten something, is if we loosen our figure 8 knot just like this, and then we take our other end of the rope and we just trace where the rope goes. So we go in there, up through there, and then we wrap around and go out the same hole. Then we can pull that tight, and just like that we have a double figure 8 knot. So obviously for climbing it'd be much closer to my body because we just have it in a harness, but that knot right there is a super great knot, will hold super tight, our ropes aren't going anywhere, so that can be used to tie yourself or tie up a bear bag or just fasten different things. So that right there is our figure 8 knot, and then also the double figure 8 knot. So just like that, those are my 10 favorite knots, the ones that I use most when I'm out surviving or just with projects around the home. With those 10 knots right there, that's pretty much everything I do, so I find some way to get by. You definitely have to be creative, and sometimes there isn't necessarily one knot that's best of what you're doing. I find that a lot of times when I'm building shelters and stuff that I'm trying to tie up logs, and there's not always a best knot, but as long as I know some of them, I can kind of combine them or use them in different places, and they'll work for what I need. But it's super important to be able to tie knots, especially if you're survival camping. You might be tying up your tarp or your rain fly, or maybe some sort of hammock, or you're fastening logs together to make a shelter, to make a bed, or you're tying up a bear bag. Again, the options are really endless of ways that you can use knots and places that you'll need to use them. So knots are definitely an important tool, and it's really important to know how to use some, as well as practice them pretty often, because they can be forgotten really easily, or you can get out there and maybe forget that a square knot the second time that you go over is reversed, and then you'll get not as strong of a knot, or just different things like that. So it's important that you know how to tie knots, because they can just be vital for helping you survive. So just like that, those are my 10 favorite knots, and there are hundreds more of different kinds of knots that are similar or do different things, but those are the 10 that I use most often when I'm survival camping or with projects around the homes. But we'll definitely do more in the future with knots that look cool, or knots that are fun to tie, different things like that. Kind of like the bow line. I love just doing that one and seeing how fast I can do it. Comment down below your fastest time to do a bow line and get it secured. It'll be cool to see how fast people can do it. But again, thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned some stuff. I hope there's some knots that you want to learn, so go get a rope, watch this video, and practice some, and you'll be a pro in no time. So I'll see you in the next video, and as always, saddle up for the ride.
If you like this video, make sure to check out the Outdoor Cowboy YouTube channel. We've got new videos every week, survival adventures, camping projects, tool restorations, and a whole bunch more. Hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
I'm super excited to announce that Outdoor Cowboy merch is finally here. It's something I've been working on for a while, and I couldn't be more happy about. You guys have seen me wearing these shirts in my videos. I've been putting them to the test in the outdoors, so I can tell you that they're durable, they're really high quality, and they're super comfortable. They're something that I'm proud to put the Outdoor Cowboy name on. And while the merch is pretty awesome, one of the best parts is that a portion of all Outdoor Cowboy merch sales will go to a nonprofit that supports the conservation of our outdoors and our wildlife. So by grabbing some merch, you're not just supporting me and the Outdoor Cowboy channel, you're also helping to protect the beautiful outdoors that we all love to explore and that I couldn't make my videos without. And there'll be a future video about the foundation that we donate to and their conservation efforts. We've got a couple different designs of shirts made in a bunch of different colors, one being the double logo I have on right now, and we also have hoodies and some other sweet accessories as well. My personal favorite being the Saddle Up for the Ride shirt and hoodie, so definitely go check that one out. And this is just the start of the Outdoor Cowboy brand. I have big things planned in the future for more products and designs. And as you guys know, it's really important to me that my content will always be wholesome and appropriate for all ages and members of the family, so I made sure that we have merch for all members of the family. We have shirts for adults, kids, and babies, and we even have Outdoor Cowgirl shirts. Click the link in description or go to outdoorcowboyshop.myshopify.com. So go grab your Outdoor Cowboy merch, support me and my channel, and support a great cause.